Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots. Who shows just like source fast as meat sacks. I'm a useful idiot, and today I want to talk about a story where another conspiracy theory becomes conspiracy fact. And in this instance, we're talking about a criminal international banking cartel. And of course, we've had a number of stories break recently and over the last few years that bear out the idea that this is a huge global criminal network. And the latest examples being that bank after bank after bank, both in America and Europe, has been found to be laundering money for drug cartels and terrorists. And 90% of the drug trade out of Colombia, the money generated by that, is laundered through American banks. And then, of course, we have the LIBOR scandal, where all the banks across the globe, once again, are involved in manipulating interest rates to their advantage. And another recent story, it turns out that all these banks not only were manipulating LIBOR, but all the benchmark interest rates globally. So, once again, we have more evidence that we have a criminal global organization at work here. And, of course, all the central banks are united and have an affinity and interact, as well as all the regional banks and national banks around the globe that are affiliated into the national systems to which the central banks oversee. So this is an octopus with global reach across the globe, and of course we have private bankers behind the scenes as the movers and shakers in all the central banks around the globe as well. A lot of people still don't realize that central banks really have no affinity or affiliation with the national governments of their respective nations. They are a quasi-federal, quasi-government, privately held bank. So anyway, talking about bank crime, let's make it simple. So if anyone has any doubts left that the banks are all involved in criminal activities, let's go down a couple of lists. Now, the first list I have is just a comprehensive list of all the criminal activities that banks across the globe, especially in Europe, the UK, and the United States, are involved in. And that is bid rigging fraud on local governments, laundering money for drug cartels, laundering money for terrorists, pension skimming, charging storage fees for gold, fraud-initiated loans, fraud on foreclosing on loans, selling mortgages to multiple parties, cheating homeowners, massive LIBOR interest fraud, insider trading, working both sides of a deal, securities fraud, front-running, wash trades, manipulating asset prices, manipulating markets, participating in Ponzi schemes, cooking their books, bribing or bullying rating agencies, and financial extortion. All criminal activities. And yet, in this entire economic collapse initiated by a bunch of insiders, hardly anyone goes to jail except for the small fish. And if that weren't enough, I'm going to include a link below, and this is a number of basically industry terms for corruption and fraud and criminal activity within our financial industry that are common and accepted terminology for a number of criminal activities. And rather than go into all the definitions here, I'm just going to run down the list, and I'll include the link below. And that includes churning, front-running, insider trading, marking the close, market manipulation, matched order, parallel running, parking, phantom order, pump and dump, snake trading, trash and cash, wash sales, and wash trades. So these techniques are so ingrained in our financial system that they have very commonly accepted names. And I'm familiar with about half of that list, and a lot of it's new to me, so I'm going to be doing some research as well. So, and this is in addition to all the other layers of dubious, if not criminal, activities that the international banking cartels are involved in. One, of course, is the fractional reserve system, where they're leveraged anywhere from 12 to 1 to 30 to 1 to 60 to 1 to 100 to 1 to 1,000 to 1, and on into infinity, leveraging out money against assets they do not hold and couldn't possibly cover. And then you layer piles of counterparty risk, credit default swaps, and CDOs, and dubious securities. You have another layer of fraud and corruption and misdirection, misrepresentation. And so we have layers of fraud and corruption there. And then we have high-frequency trading, where they just basically have a huge machine hooked up where they skim pennies off of all the transactions going on in the stock market every day. Clearly, if it isn't illegal, it should be. It just doesn't smell good. And we also have this same industry, this international banking cartel, financing elections all around the globe. In the U.S. alone, since 1990, the U.S. banking industry has put in $6.6 billion in campaign contributions. So here we have, just like the organized crime, we have money going into the machine and paying the government in order to facilitate their agenda. The banking industry not that much different from the mob. And then we have all these, of course, these cross-fertilization between the government and corporations. A good example of that is the attorney for Lloyd Blankfein at Goldman Sachs CEO is Eric Holder's best friend and former personal attorney, Reed Weingarten. So our Attorney General of the United States, his best friend, is now the attorney for Lloyd Blankfein, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, too big to fail bank. And of course, we also have Goldman Sachs giving $1 million to the Obama campaign in 2008. And Weingarten is also the lawyer for former MF Global Treasurer Edith O'Brien. So there's another way the international banking cartel infiltrates, all levels of government and corporate America, and not just the banking sector. So we have the same type of business model too in the banking industry, as well as our government and corporate America and global corporate culture in general. So the ends justify the means, and criminal activities are an accepted part of the business practice. So another characteristic of classic international criminal organization. And last but not least, of course, it comes down to an issue as far as how this is characterized for the public as the difference between moral and legal. So a lot of times we hear the justification for all of this as, well, yeah, it's immoral, and reprehensible behavior, but it's not illegal. But I beg to differ. We have regulators who are asleep at the wheel, who are complicit in the international banking cartel, criminal banking cartel, and we have all the government who oversight over all of the banking industry and the financials is asleep at the wheel and complicit, and the entire industry generating revenue has been co-opted and part of the cartel. So we stand by the fact that another conspiracy theory has become a conspiracy fact, and we have a very obvious international criminal banking cartel that stretches across the globe. So can't get any more obvious than that, people. Check it out. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.